Well, hello there, class, and welcome to Unit 6. I'm going to do a couple of videos. This first one I'm going to do is going to be just kind of in response to last week. There was some great discussion, so I'm so grateful for all that you kind of shared and I wouldn't say sparred, but definitely this healthy, robust debate talking about what's the role of faith at work and faith and work, and how do we connect these things, and what does it mean to have a vocational call, and can you have a vocation without faith, and what do you mean Tim Keller wants me to stay in a job that I hate? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Aren't I supposed to be pursuing my passions? And so many good thoughts. I'm so grateful for all that you contributed this last week. So I wanted to spend some time talking about last week, and I know that in hindsight, I guess I would say, it's always one of those things that, oh, I wish I had said this, or I wish I had thought about it this way. But I want us to spend some time, I want to share a couple ideas, some things, in response to what it was that you had said. I'm looking at this, and just page after page after page of response. And I'm thinking, well, how did I get so, how fortunate am I that this is what I get to do? I mean, that gets me just thrilled out of my mind, that I get to work with students who are unpacking and kind of wrestling with this idea of vocation and calling, and getting to traffic in content from Andy Crouch and Tim Keller and Ryan Dick and Ryan Duffy, and all of these amazing thought leaders with regard to vocation and calling. So I want to hit on a couple of things, some questions. And one of the questions, I think I've already spoken to this a little bit, but it was brought up again. And so I want to make mention of a couple of things in relation to this question. So the question is this: how can you be sure that what you think is your calling is your real calling? And I think so. That's the $64,000 question, and that's where the confusion comes into place, because we all would say, many of us would say, my calling is fill in the blank. So let me reiterate what I've said before. For me, again, I'm so fortunate. I'm so excited. I love my work. I do. I love it, but I don't feel, if I'm going to use this terminology of called, I don't feel called to be a university professor. Like, I didn't have this deep-seated, this almost, I guess I would say, insatiable desire that nothing else would fulfill but to teach. Okay, so going way back. Okay, no idea. Right, my only thought was I wanted to be a professional baseball player. And that was it. I wanted to play for the Giants because I grew up in Northern California and grew up, watching Giants like Will Clark and Matt Williams and these Robbie Thompson, Kevin Mitchell, these amazing players. And I said, I got to do that. And I remember having a conversation. When you look at career development from a lifespan's perspective, some of the conversations that I had with my father had to do with, but what happens if that doesn't pan out? Well, of course it's going to pan out. At the time, I'm 12 or 13 years old, so of course I know what's best. I know what's going to happen. And he would try and teach me how to work on a car, and I'd say, I don't need to know how to work on a car, because I'm going to be on the Giants and making millions of dollars. And I'm just going to pay somebody to fix my car, right? I'm going to live in the city, so I'm probably going to just, Ubers weren't around at that point, but, I'm going to take a taxi, or I'm going to have a driver. In my naivete, in my immaturity, and really in my arrogance, probably, I could say. And so I didn't think about it. Graduated, went to college, didn't have any idea what I wanted to do. I took a class in recreation administration, and I said, oh, I like that class, I like that teacher, I like these students. I'm a junior, I should probably declare. So I declared a recreation administration major. Great. Had some jobs. I worked at a coffee shop. I worked at another coffee shop. I worked at a church. I worked in a warehouse. All these things. Just kind of did hodgepodge jobs to pay the bills. Did some landscaping. Worked at the university and basically did, again, landscaping type work for the institution. But just kind of, ho-hummed around and said, oh, well, this is cool. I really like this. I just liked being in college. It was fun to be in college. And so here I am. I had an opportunity to do another internship at the college group, the college church that met on our university campus. So I took that for a year. Graduated December. The internship lasted until June. Made a connection through that job, applied for a position at Chico State, got the gig, worked there for almost 2 years, applied for a job at APU, got the job at APU, went to grad school, got a master's degree, all the while thinking, oh, I like higher education, I'll stick around in higher education. Did that, applied for another job at Chico, thought I had it, and didn't have it. And 217 applications later, I finally came back to APU with a new position. All that to say, if you think on my historical background and the things that I did, I'm perhaps the worst person to give career-related advice. However, what also took place in that time frame was I started to think about calling. I started to think about job. I didn't even know that what I was thinking about, though, was this idea of calling. I didn't even know that what I was thinking about was this idea of vocation. I was just thinking about things. I was trying to wrestle through, what is my role? What do I do? What do I want to do? And I don't know. That was the thing. That was the challenge. That was the hardship. I just wanted a job. And so in this process, I think I realized, in fact, let me go back. I know I realized that at least for the first 8.5 months or so, I was so arrogant. I was so, just like I'm above these jobs. I'm above work. I worked at a rice farm. I'm above the rice farm job. I'm above. I have a graduate degree. I have experience. Well, I'm not going to take a job that pays anything less than fill in the blank. Well, you would think that after applying for 200 some odd jobs, that I would just be willing to take anything, right? You would think so. So fast forward throughout this process, I had a job, that job got canceled, had a new job, didn't like that job, but I realized it was a job. It was a good job. And so all of these things to say, what I realized through the process is, as a follower of Jesus, my calling is to serve people. My calling is to serve the local church. And I can serve people in any capacity, anywhere, that's what I can do. But I think we confuse so often calling and desire, right? I think I told you I talked to somebody and they said, I need to talk with you about pursuing my calling to fill in the blank. And my initial thought was, how do I know that's your calling? In fact, how do you know that's your calling and not just something that you're excited and passionate about? And so we have to really kind of wrestle through those questions. So how can I know that what I think my calling is actually my calling? Well, but I think you need to define what calling is. And I need to wrestle through, is it just something I'm excited about? Because again, there's nothing wrong with pursuing a job that you're excited about, right? So even though Keller says that he wants you to stay in the job you hate, if you're pursuing a new job, that doesn't mean that you have to find something that you're going to hate, right? It's just, you can pursue the things that you're interested in. In fact, I think we all probably do that, whether consciously or subconsciously. We pursue graduate studies that we like, right? So you don't want to spend all this time and money and effort to get a degree that you're like, I don't want to get that degree. Especially if you think, from the long run, I'm just going to have to go get a job I hate anyway. No, you want to do something that you enjoy doing. But again, we have to think about it. Is it just that I want to pursue my passions? And are we calling my passion, my heart's desire, are we calling that a calling? Well, I think, in fact, I know God has placed desires in our hearts. There's things in which we are interested that others are not. Right? So I had students that would call when I was working in recruitment. They would say, I want to pursue a career in special education. And they would even use things like, I feel called to work in the field of special education. Okay. What they didn't say was, I feel that my calling is to work in special education. I feel called to. And I think even in those words, there's some pretty significant distinctions there. I feel called to versus I feel that my calling is. Because somebody could say, I feel called to be a university instructor. Okay, well then you make some pursuits to do that. I'm going to go get this degree and I'm going to get this experience. I'm going to, whether it's volunteer, internship, assistantship, I'm going to, team teach, whatever the case is, to get your foot in the door, right? That's one approach. But if I'm telling people that my calling is fill in the blank, I think that we're perhaps thinking about it a bit incorrectly. So we need to make sure that we start with, as I've said from the beginning, the right definitions and understanding. But if someone wants to say, what's your calling, and you want to make sure that it's correct, I would say, especially for the follower of Jesus, we have these conversations where we're going to say things like, is it illegal, unethical, or immoral? No, right? So would you enjoy it? Yeah. So, but Keller said I'm supposed to not leave my job I hate. But again, it's a job you already have. So don't not pay attention to your heart's desires. Don't not pay attention to what you are feeling pulled toward, but also be in wise counsel. Seek wisdom, right? Seek those questions. I was in a class last week, and we had a guest student in there, and they were saying, what if you feel called to be, and they used the example of a stripper. Well, illegal, not illegal, unethical, yeah, I think you could say that. Immoral, yes, absolutely. So probably not something that you could consider to be your calling, right? So we have to think about this differently. So how do you know it's your calling? Well, I think maybe we need to start using language like, how do I know what you're called to? Vocational call. So if we think about vocation within the context of dignity, and all jobs have dignity and worth, then that's really important. So again, it's a definition standpoint. Great question. Really complicated question, but I think that you've wrestled through this in many ways. Another question that was asked, and I think this is another great question. I mean, there's so many, I'm trying to even think like, where do I start? How do I even approach all these? And I can't get to everything. But one of the questions was, how do I pursue social shalom, tongue twister, in an environment, in a city, in a town, in a community where there's such diverse folks, especially when it comes to perhaps religious beliefs, even the things that we would classify or qualify as right, all of these things, right? So how do we? So here's the deal. We talked about this, I think, too. Jeremiah 29:7. I love in Jeremiah, it's written that to the Israelites in exile, that we are to pursue the welfare. You could even include social welfare or the well-being of the city. And in their welfare, you too will find yours. So I think that we have this divide, and this is where I'm trying to deconstruct this idea. We have a divide in our class, or not in our class necessarily, but in our understanding of call, vocation, work, all these things. Sacred, secular. Don't think it necessarily has to be. So I might bring in my Christian beliefs. I might bring in my religious beliefs. I might bring in my fill-in-the-blank beliefs to this organization, to this setting. And I'm going to this is why the conversation of faith and work, faith at work, is so important. What does it look like to live out your faith at work? Well, yeah, I can only do that in a ministry. No, that's not true. Because if I'm going to fully live out my faith, what is the greatest command of all? To love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And second is love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. I can do that. I can treat other people as better than me. I can outdo you in honor. Even if ideologically speaking, we don't see eye to eye, I still know that it's better for you and it's better for me when I put your needs first. So it's this reconciliation idea of, I want to be compassionate, I want to be in proximity, I want to put you first, I want to consider you better than me, even if you don't necessarily agree with me. I would in fact even say, especially if you don't agree with me. So when I look at the ministry and the life of Jesus, and when he's living out his life in ministry, vocational, pastoral, or rabbinical ministry, what he's doing is he's calling truth to life. But he's someone who has lived a life. He's spoken words that bring life, not death, right? So he has been honest and loving and honest. And was there division? Yeah, there was. People didn't like what he said all the time. And he had those that were some honest followers, and he had those that were some honest haters. But what he was doing was, I'm preaching a word, a message to you. I'm speaking out against the world for the sake of the world. I'm being in the world for the sake of the world. I'm being in and for the world. I'm not going to capitulate. I'm not going to be like the world. I'm going to be in the world. I'm going to make a difference, and I'm going to pursue your welfare. So these are the things we wrestle with. So can we continue to work in certain places even if they're in opposition to our faith? Yes, I think we can, without having to jeopardize our convictions. I think we need to be both compassionate and convicted. And you don't have to give up your convictions in order to be compassionate. And you don't have to give up compassion in order to be a person of conviction. You have to be both. And I think that's the trick. There's not a formula. It's not even a trick. It's, I'm going to hold to my convictions while being compassionate and love my neighbor as myself, because the God that at least many of us, I do, say I serve, has called me to do just that. And as I pursue the welfare of the city, and they find theirs, I too will find mine. When the righteous flourish, the city rejoices. Great questions last week. More to come.